Hello everyone, my name is Christian. Welcome back to my hobby blog. I'm excited today because I'm going to be reviewing Stephen King's book, The Wind Through the Keyhole, which is book 4.5 of the Dark Tower series. This is basically like a flashback book, just like book 4 was, except this time it's a flashback within a flashback because right off the bat we start with our central characters, Roland, Susanna, Eddie, and the boy along with Oi. And I always forget the name of the boy. I'm sorry, but I'm trying to think of it like off the top of my head. I should have looked it up, but he's a pretty fun character. But we have this group, and they're traveling after the Crystal Palace at the end of book 4. And they're sort of looking for the Dark Tower. They're just kind of following the path of the beam and looking for the Crimson King and all this stuff. And the meeting some pretty fun characters, and we get some references to the story all about the Wind Through the Keyhole, which is a story that everyone sort of knows in the world of the Dark Tower, at least within the world that Roland and these other characters in Book 4 grew up in. And so they sort of are going through the world, and they sit down at a campfire, and Roland starts to talk about when he was a kid, like 12 years old or so, when he was on one of his first gunslinging missions. And he's talking about it, and he's sort of set onto a task by his father to investigate sort of this skin changer demon who is sort of killing tons of people, and people are afraid to go out at night, and it's all this really interesting stuff. I love this type of like story that Stephen King does. I loved everything with this plot line. But while he is talking to one of the survivors of the skin changer, that survivor then starts talking about the story that went through the keyhole. And we go kind of deeper within the meta. And we get this pretty fun, I will say, storyline about this boy who has a mother who is sort of in love with this one man, but that man dies, and he is replaced by his stepdad, who is a piece of shit. No one likes him. He's constantly getting drunk, beating his new wife, and also intimidating his son-in-law. And I really did not like the storyline up until a point, which is about towards the end, about halfway through the book. Then a lot of like Book the New Sun type of events start happening where he meets all these different races, like intelligent races, where they're kind of like swamp beasts, and then he meets like a giant dragon who kind of helps him. And all these different like creatures start helping him along his journey to try and find a cure for his mother's blindness, because her shitty husband-in-law, or second husband, I guess, blinds her, and her son is like, oh my gosh, I need to take it upon myself to help my mother and sort of bring her back sight. And so that's the entire emotional thrust of the story. I love that side of this story, but I really did not like the setup for it, because there was a lot of sort of repetition with a lot of other Stephen King stories. A lot of the same arguments, a lot of the same insults. And it's sort of, I was really bored in this section. I mean, it's a pretty short book, though. Like, you can just see how little many pages, like it's like 300 at the most. And I really did not like that section. But I loved everything where we're talking with Roland, and then when we go into the skin changer stuff. But the beginning of this sort of meta storyline was not something I enjoyed. And I will say that I loved the last like half of it or so, because as that story gets wrapped up, a lot of the solutions happen, and we see a lot of really fantastical characters. We see a giant tiger, which is on the cover of the story, and it ends up being a pretty fun character from Arthurian legend, which I really enjoyed, which I was not expecting. And it was just really fun to get all these sort of weird aspects. I think that's what Stephen King does the best. But once that plot line wraps up, then we go back to the skin changer, and I feel like that was wrapped up very quickly. I I thought it was fine. It was effective, but I thought it was a little too fast because I feel like Stephen King wanted to have this sort of third story that was like Inception, like 3 layers deep of people talking. And I think he wanted that to be like the primary focus because this was published after the final Dark Tower book. So he kind of just, to my impression is that he really wanted to return to the world, and he was like, I have a really fun kind of narrative style that I want to play with for this book. And I think it works for the most part, but I think because of how slow the beginning of it was, I just did not like that storyline for most of it. And that's the main sort of thrust of this book. The other 2 storylines with Roland are basically sort of like the box surrounding the story. Like the story is the heart of it. Went through the keyhole. But I was really disappointed by how slow it was in the beginning. But it caught up, so I was really happy with that. And there's not really any spoilers I want to talk about. I mean, it's just... It was pretty predictable, but that's not a problem. That's not an issue to me, as long as it's written well. And it was. It's Stephen King. He can write. He's written dozens, maybe hundreds of novels in his life. So I really enjoyed this book. I think I'm going to give it like an 8 out of 10. Like, it was fun. 7.5 at the lowest. But I think overall it was very worth reading. And I'm very happy that my friend Nerdy Cathy was just sort of like, yes, just go ahead and read it. Get it knocked out, because chronologically it is the next book within the series, even though in terms of release order it was after everything, but it's not really that effective of a read if you read it after the end of the story, is how she was framing it. And I agree. I think I was very blessed to be able to read this after book 4, because it does sort of continue from book 4, but not so much that it's like it's its own book or whatever. It's just more of like a nice snapshot, and it gives me more information about Roland and the other characters and sort of the myths around the Dark Tower, which I enjoy. I love that stuff. I love the world building within the Dark Tower. I'm very happy that Stephen King sort of is taking so many chances, like bringing in a lot of like Wizard of Oz, bringing in a lot of like Arthurian legend. And it's very effective. I'm very happy to be able to have read this, and I just can't wait to get to book 5. I don't know when that will be. I have a few books I want to read first, as I said in my last review about Robin Hobb's book, but I have a few books I want to get into, new series I want to get into, because I'm kind of getting bored. Not bored, but like I need something fresh in order to keep my reading going fast. When I'm not at school. So I want to thank everyone for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this review. Let me know what you think about this book. I had someone comment that I missed a lot about book 4, and I asked for clarification. They never got back to me. So I'm hoping I did not miss too much with this book. Not too much happened. It's a lot more like sort of mood, kind of atmosphere and stuff like that in this book, which I love. I love that shit. So thank you all so much for watching, and please have a great rest of the day.